How your impulses steal success before you notice. I was 5 seconds away from destroying something I had worked on for years. It was a cold morning. I remember the smell of burnt toast, the sound of a slammed door, and a message on my phone that shattered my world. I'm done. Don't contact me again. Everything in me screamed for retaliation. Text back something cold, savage, prove that I wasn't the weak one, that I wasn't the one abandoned. But then, something strange happened. I just sat there, frozen. Not with fear, but with awareness. I could feel this fire rising inside, this uncontrollable urge to act without thinking. And in that moment, I realized, this was the enemy. Not her, not the situation, this impulse. And if I listened to it, everything I'd built, my peace, my reputation, my inner freedom, would collapse in seconds. This video is not about anger, relationships, or heartbreak. It's about something much deeper, much more dangerous and invisible. It's about how our own impulses, those split-second reactions we justify with, I just had to do it, or I couldn't help myself, steal our success quietly, without asking permission, before we even realize it. And Stoicism? Stoicism holds the cure. But let me take you deeper into this, because once you see it, you can never unsee it. Let's go back in time. There's a story I've never told online before. I used to be addicted to the feeling of urgency. If something made me feel angry, I spoke. If I was excited, I spent. If I was scared, I ran. My life was a chain reaction of knee-jerk decisions that I convinced myself were passionate, authentic, even bold. But in truth, I was a puppet, not to society, not to the government, but to my own body. My impulses were driving, and I was just a passenger. And guess where they were taking me? Nowhere good. I lost opportunities, friendships, nights of sleep, all because I had no inner governor, no pause button, no philosophy. Until one random afternoon, I stumbled upon the teachings of Marcus Aurelius. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." I didn't just read it, I felt it. I saw myself standing in that kitchen, staring at the message on my phone, and choosing, not reacting. It wasn't weakness. It was power. And that moment became a turning point. Because here's the crazy part. Most of us aren't even aware of how much power we give away every single day. We scroll past something online that offends us, and boom, we're sucked into a comment war with strangers. We're criticized at work, and without thinking, we snap, argue, or retreat. Someone cuts us off in traffic, and suddenly our blood pressure skyrockets and our whole day is ruined. But what if I told you this? Every one of those moments was a secret test, and you're being failed by your own biology. You see, Stoics knew something modern science only recently confirmed. Our impulses are deeply wired for survival, not success. Your brain doesn't care about your long-term goals. It cares about immediate resolution. It wants to solve discomfort, escape uncertainty, punch the problem. But success, true, deep, unshakable success, lives in the pause between impulse and action. It's in the breath you take before responding. The moment you stop and say, "Is this who I want to be?" And here's where it gets real. The Stoics trained for this. They weren't superheroes. They were ordinary people who practiced extraordinary awareness. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." Let that sink in. It's not about them. It's about you. Your mind's ability to choose its response. To hold the line when everything inside is screaming to break it. I started testing this in my daily life. And that's when I hit the second big realization. Your impulses don't just sabotage your peace. They sabotage your potential. I'll give you an example. I had an idea for a business. I was passionate, driven, and had everything lined up. But then came the hard work, the long nights, the slow progress, the rejection. And I felt it, the impulse to quit. Not because I didn't believe in it, but because I didn't feel like continuing. That's when I realized, the path to greatness is littered with impulses to give up. And the people who succeed? They don't always have more talent. They have more control, more pause. So I started treating every impulse, every desire to procrastinate, to rage, to indulge, as a philosophical opponent. I'd stop and ask, what would Marcus do? And that one question changed everything. Because it revealed the truth I want to tell you right now. Your impulses aren't you, they're just visitors. And you get to choose whether they stay. Right now, there's probably something in your life stealing your success quietly. A habit, a reaction, a voice in your head. It's not loud, it doesn't wear a villain's mask. It's subtle, comfortable, familiar. But it's the enemy. And you won't defeat it by trying harder. You'll defeat it by seeing it. By training yourself, like the Stoics did, to pause, observe, choose. You don't need a life overhaul. You need a 3-second window of awareness. That's it. So here's your challenge. For the next 24 hours, notice every time you're about to do something without thinking. And instead of doing it, pause. Ask yourself, is this who I want to be? That's where power is born. And in the next part of this video, we're going even deeper, because what happens when your impulses disguise themselves as virtues? What if the very things you think are making you strong are actually keeping you weak? You're not ready for this. Why doing the right thing can sometimes be your most dangerous impulse. I once believed that being right was a virtue. That standing up for myself, defending my honor, asserting my boundaries, these were noble actions, and yes, in many cases, they are. But here's the terrifying part. Even the right impulse can lead you off the cliff if you don't examine it. Let me tell you what happened. A few years back, I got into a heated argument with a close friend. He said something I considered deeply disrespectful, something that cut into my values, my identity. Every cell in my body screamed, "You can't let him get away with that." I was ready to cut him off, walk away, let him know exactly how wrong he was. And then I remembered something from Seneca. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. So I waited. I didn't text back. I didn't call. I just sat with the discomfort, like a Stoic would. And in that silence, something shocking emerged. He wasn't wrong. He was honest. And I was reacting, not to his cruelty, but to my pride being bruised. You see, our minds are masters of disguise. The impulse to look strong, be right, take charge, can easily mask fear, insecurity, or ego. Think about this. How many times have you defended yourself? Not because you were truly under attack, but because you couldn't bear being misunderstood? How often do we jump to fix a situation when we haven't even fully listened? How often do we post online, say something dramatic, or end a relationship, not from strength, but from the impulse to avoid feeling small? The Stoics had a word for this: path, passions, not the modern romantic idea, but internal storms, sudden floods of emotion that sweep you off your feet and drown your wisdom. And here's the paradox. Sometimes, the most dangerous storms are disguised as justice, love, and truth. That's why Marcus Aurelius warned. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Let that sit for a moment. When I judged my friend's words as an attack, I became defensive, but when I examined that judgment, slowed it down, I saw an opportunity to grow. And this is where you and I get tested the most. Not when we're clearly wrong, but when we're technically right. Because when we're right, we feel justified, empowered, even righteous. And that's when the impulse sneaks in with a smile. I started seeing this everywhere. A coworker who insists on being heard, but never listens. A parent who disciplines from fear, not love. A leader who pushes forward with boldness, but never pauses to ask, is this truly wise? And worst of all? The version of me who used stoicism itself as a weapon, hiding behind calm to avoid vulnerability, saying, I'm unbothered, when really, I was avoiding growth. That's when I hit the second wall of Stoic practice. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering your relationship with it. You don't become strong by ignoring the storm. You become strong by learning to sail through it without letting it steer the ship. There was one particular moment that taught me this in a way I'll never forget. I was at a funeral. Someone close to me passed away, and I told myself, be strong, be stoic, don't cry. But as I stood there watching the casket being lowered, something cracked. I remembered Epictetus saying, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do. I looked around at the faces, grieving, raw, unfiltered. I saw love, pain, humanity, and I let go. I wept. Not from weakness, but from acceptance, from the realization that resisting grief was just another impulse, one disguised as strength. And in that moment, I understood something Marcus Aurelius hinted at again and again. Real power is gentle, it's calm, it doesn't flinch, but it also doesn't force. Your strongest self isn't the one that reacts fast, it's the one that responds slowly, wisely, from principle, not from pride. So now I ask you, what are the noble impulses in your life that might actually be leading you astray? Are you speaking out of love, or out of fear of being unseen? Are you pursuing success to fulfill your purpose, or to prove someone wrong? Are you acting in strength, or just avoiding discomfort? These are brutal questions, but Stoicism demands them. Because without them, your impulses will dress themselves up in robes of virtue, and you'll never know you were fooled. This is why the Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, imagining things going wrong, not to be negative, but to be ready, to train their minds to respond with intention instead of reaction. I've started doing this daily. Every morning, I imagine someone misunderstanding me, delays ruining my schedule, people criticizing my work. And I visualize myself not fighting, but flowing. Not clinging, but choosing. Because when the moment comes, and it always does, I don't want to be hijacked by my impulses, no matter how righteous they seem. I want to be free. You do too, I know it. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you feel the need to act, speak, defend, or fix, pause, and ask, is this coming from love, or from fear? That one question could save your next relationship, your career, your sanity. In the final part of this video, we're going to reveal the ultimate Stoic technique that can disarm any impulse, no matter how powerful, and transform it into your greatest strength. But be warned, it's the hardest thing you'll ever try. The 3-second rule that Stoics use to conquer every emotion, and you can too. Let me take you to a moment that nearly broke me. It wasn't some massive failure or public humiliation. It was something so small, so ordinary, that it almost slipped under the radar. I was in line at a coffee shop, tired, stressed, on my way to an important meeting. The person in front of me, scrolling through their phone, totally oblivious, holding up the line. And something in me snapped. Not visibly, I didn't yell or roll my eyes. But inside, I was boiling. Come on, move, how hard is it to order coffee? I felt my jaw tighten, my thoughts spiral, my body tense. All because someone took 30 seconds longer than I expected. That's when it hit me like a freight train. If something this small can steal my peace, my focus, my self-control, how free am I really? That's when I remembered the one Stoic practice I'd read 100 times, but never really used. I call it the 3-second rule. Here's how it works. Whenever something triggers you, anger, anxiety, impatience, envy, you give yourself a sacred 3-second space before you act. And in that space, you do 3 things. 1. You observe. What am I feeling? 2. You name. This is frustration. This is fear. This is ego. 3. You choose. What would my highest self do next? It sounds simple. But it's not easy. Because in those 3 seconds, every part of your impulse screams, act now, react, defend yourself. But that pause, that tiny pocket of resistance, that's where freedom begins. Marcus Aurelius said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Strength isn't found in how much you can lift. It's in how little you let lift you out of character. I started using the 3-second rule in everyday life, in traffic, during arguments, before hitting send on that risky text or comment. And what I found was shocking. The world slowed down. I began to see things more clearly. I realized that 90% of my previous problems weren't problems, they were reactions. Unnecessary, avoidable, manufactured in my own mind. This is what the Stoics mastered. They didn't try to control the world, they controlled themselves. They knew the only battle that mattered was the one inside, not against others, but against their own unexamined urges. And let me tell you something crazy. Once you master that inner battle, everything else becomes easier. Your relationships stabilize, your work improves, you feel less tired, less anxious, less controlled by what others say or do. You stop leaking energy trying to fix the outside world and instead become the kind of person who doesn't need the world to be perfect in order to be at peace. I know this sounds idealistic. But I've lived the alternative. I've followed every impulse, tried to fight every injustice, chased every emotional high. And it left me burned out, shallow, empty. But now, I have something better. Not perfection, not constant happiness, but clarity. Because when you use that 3-second rule, you stop playing defense and start playing chess. You stop being reactive and start becoming intentional. You start asking deeper questions, ones that Stoicism was designed to help you answer. Like, what am I actually aiming for in life? Is this choice taking me closer or further from that? What kind of person do I want to be under pressure? The answers won't come fast, but the discipline of asking, over and over, is what changes you. Let me show you how powerful this gets. I once met a man, stoic to his core, who lost everything in a single week. Job, wife, health, gone. And when I asked him how he didn't fall apart, he said, "I did fall apart, but only inside. Outside, I moved slowly, carefully. I let the storm rage in my chest, and I walked through it like the Stoics taught me." That, right there, is what Stoicism gives you. The ability to live with the storm, without becoming the storm. So here's your final challenge. For the next 7 days, whenever you feel an impulse rise, good or bad, use the 3-second rule. Pause, observe, name, choose. Just 3 seconds, that's all. Because in that space, you're no longer a slave, you're no longer a puppet, you become a philosopher in action. And that's the whole point of Stoicism. Not to read quotes. Not to sound wise. But to live differently. To walk through a chaotic world and still choose virtue. To be pulled in every direction by society, emotion, fear, and still say, "I am not moved by what I cannot control. I move only by reason and purpose." You won't always get it right, neither did the Stoics. But each time you pause before the impulse, each time you reclaim that second, you are building the most valuable thing on earth. A self that cannot be stolen. So if you've ever wondered why you haven't reached your full potential, why you sabotage when things start to go right, why peace seems one step ahead of you, now you know. It was never the world holding you back, it was your unexamined impulses. But not anymore. Now, you've seen the truth. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You have a weapon, you have a shield, you have philosophy. Use it. And remember the one line that carries all Stoic power in just 6 words. Control what you can, ignore the rest. If you live that, no impulse can ever own you again. I just handed you a tool that emperors used to govern nations. Warriors used to conquer fear. And philosophers used to endure exile. And if you apply it, you'll conquer yourself. Which is the greatest victory of all. So pause the scroll, exit the noise, and give yourself those 3 seconds. Because in those 3 seconds, you become unstoppable. Now go out there and live like a Stoic. If this hit you deep, like, life just changed deep, comment, I choose pause, and share this with someone who's stuck in reaction mode. I'll see you in the next one.